Yo, this is Steve Bloom, and you're watching Moana Nui Podcast. We'll be starting soon. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, and welcome to another very special episode of the Moana Nui Podcast. I am your guest host, CC the Geek, Chana Lawson, whichever one you know me by, and wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you to Moana and Dana for entrusting me with this task and for working hard behind the scenes while they're multitasking, doing many other things. So big shout out to them, and let's get right into it. So without further ado, I want to address our guest, our esteemed guest. And first and foremost, I want to address our topic, which is self-awareness. And how well do you understand yourself and where you are and where you're right and where you're wrong, or maybe somewhere in between. So I want to address the Center for Asian and Pacific Islander Women's president and CEO. And I'm very proud and honored to have met her personally. She's really awesome and just really cool, easy to talk to, dynamic woman, Ms. Sue-Ann Hong. Please welcome her to the panel. Yay.
Hello, CC. Thank you so much for being our guest host, and appreciate you stepping in.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'm honored. And could you just say a little bit about yourself? I don't know. What's your favorite color?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? This is our, about third Moana Nui joint effort with our Development Thursdays. So just welcome everybody. My name again is Sue-Ann Hung. I'm the president and CEO for the Center for Asian Pacific American Women. And we are all about expanding leadership capacity for Asian American women and women of color. We have another cohort now that's relatively new called Unleash the Shiro in You. So as we talk tonight about self-awareness, this is a critical piece that I think we need to have a conversation about this, because this is important to leadership development.
Agreed. And I'm very excited to talk about this with you. So without further ado, I want to address our other esteemed panelists who will be joining us tonight. And please correct me if I mispronounce your name. Miss Antoinette Ball, founder and CEO, Women in Entrepreneurial Opportunity Project. And we have Carla Knapp, National Vice President. Hello, how are you? I'm sorry, I'm trying to read off this list while I'm bringing you on at the same time. And then we also have, pardon me, while I'm juggling back and forth. She was right there. Miss Carla Knapp, National Vice President of Native Services, Boys and Girls Club of America. Nice.
Hello, Quay.
Hello. Yay. And then we have last but certainly not least, we have Glenda Beach, Vice President of Agency Sales at State Farm.
Woo, there she is.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay.
All right. Are you ready to get started?
I am ready. Let's go. So of course, I'll let you kind of take the lead. I have a list of questions here, and then we'll kind of integrate with the question from the audience as well, if that's cool with y'all.
Absolutely. All right. We want to hear from the audience. Don't be shy, because so let me go ahead and start with just getting some more background. It is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, but I thought it was really great to have our allies with us. And so we're going to expand it. And basically what I'm saying is Carla and Antoinette are also part Asian, I decided. So they're just part of the family now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I feel that. Yes.
All right. Wonderful. So CC, do you have some official bio, or do you want me to go ahead and get started?
I do. Well, I wanted to give the ladies another chance to talk a little bit further about yourselves and what your passion is. I love to open up with that question. And then, of course, I have a list of questions that we can go from. As for myself, founder and CEO of HBCU Con, I also have done, activist work for women's rights, social, racial justice, and now LGBTQ rights. So very honored and privileged to be amongst you all. And yeah, let's Miss Antoinette, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm here from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm one of the founders of the organization. I live in Atlanta. I have a twin sister, Marinette Ball. She's also the co-founder of WEAP. I'm really passionate about anything related to women because I'm the founder of a women's organization. I've been doing this for so long, like 2 decades. So I'm passionate about supporting women of color as they advance in their businesses, as they advance in their careers, and just doing all I can to be a change maker and to support them and to really support initiatives that advance women economically. So I'm really into history. I'm a history buff. I look at Creative Commons all the time. I read stories about trailblazing women. I'm the mother of a daughter. So that's just me in a nutshell. I'm living every day like it's my last, enjoying what I do. I enjoy my work. I enjoy working with people like Swen. I enjoy everything about making a change and making things happen. So hello, everyone.
Yay. Love that. Love that. All right. Carla, how about you?
All right.
Passion.
So I'll share a little bit about myself, and that will lead probably to what I'm most passionate about. So as you heard, Carla Knapp, National Vice President of Native Services at Boys and Girls Club of America. But how I would introduce myself is that I am a proud member of the Penobscot Nation, a federally recognized tribe located in Maine. I'm married to another tribal member with 2 amazing, beautiful, talented children. So just hearing a little bit about my background, you probably can tell I am very passionate about, well, just like Annette said, is supporting women of color, really to elevate and empower others to be seen and to be heard. But I'm also passionate about building resiliency in Native youth so that they can thrive and become powerful leaders as they turn into adults.
That's awesome. I love that. Sorry, I'm just taking notes on all of you guys have such wonderful things to say. Okay, last but certainly not least, Miss Glenda Beach. I love that name. It sounds like something out of a movie. Who are you and what is your passion?
I wish I was at the beach right now. And so I am currently in Allen, Texas, and probably in a couple of months it is going to be steaming hot. My passion, really, I grew up half in the Asian world, half in the American world. My father was Caucasian, my mother was Vietnamese.
Okay.
And identity crisis, I guess you would say, growing up, because it was in a small town in Kentucky, and there weren't very many people who looked like us. And so I don't know if others can self-identify with this, but people knew I was something, but they didn't know what. And so really my passion is identification, learning about my history, my heritage, my culture, and really being emboldened, I guess, by what I have found. My partnership and friendship with Sue Ann has really opened up additional doors, and I'm so excited about that. So I maybe just summarize and say my passion is about learning about ourselves, even though we didn't always start that way.
I love that. I think a lot of times we think very absolutist when it comes to race, and we don't look at race as a spectrum, kind of like we do with gender identity. That's often one of the pitfalls, but I love that. Thank you for that. All right. Well, before I could go off script with you guys all day. All right. So, okay, please tell us about yourselves. We did that. Oh, what are you proud of regarding your heritage? That's a good one. And that question is for everyone.
Well, I can start. So what I'm most proud of is how strong our culture and traditions are, and how we've been able to pass them down from generation to generation. But also something I'm very proud of is the values that we carry. So you heard Sue Ann talk about that we're family. And in part of our culture is that besides our immediate family, we have extended family. So I think of so many people across the nation as part of our extended family. And that's what I think is so beautiful about our culture.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I want whoever can go next, but Miss Sue Ann, I'm going to ask you to go last so that you can take it from here as the moderator.
Okay. You're doing a great job, though.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I would like to chime in. I can say that being an African American woman, I'm really proud to be from a line of trailblazing women. From Sarah Good, the first African American woman that filed a patent, to Allison J. Parker, to Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells, Madam C.J. Walker. To be an African American woman and to really think about a lot of the trailblazing women that are really our ancestors that continue to pave the way for us, I'm really proud that they're part of my heritage. I think about what they're doing all the time, and as a woman, that's something that kind of compels me and provides me with that fire to keep on doing what I'm doing. So that's one thing I'm really proud about our heritage, because we came from dire circumstances, being in slavery, just kind of overcoming all the circumstances to still persevere. So I'm really proud to be that part of being my heritage, and understanding that African Americans have shaped every facet of America, from the automated traffic lights to open heart surgery, music, civil rights, and to equal opportunity. So I'm really proud that I can look back and say that that's part of my heritage.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I am proud of this. I'm proud that I get an opportunity to speak to women like you and to represent maybe women like me that didn't necessarily have a platform or a voice or a partner or a sister, for that matter. And so, I have 2 daughters, and what makes me the proudest is that they get to see me on this journey, because their father is Caucasian. So they are a quarter Asian. My youngest is blonde hair and blue eyed, and she's proud of her Asian heritage, but people would not know that. And I am proud that she has felt empowered to share that with people in a way that is meaningful versus just attention getting. And so when we get into self-awareness in a little bit, I'll share some stories there. But this moment right now, the opportunity, it's a proud moment.
I know that's right. Last but certainly not least, Miss Sue Wong. I apologize. It's such a habit. I was raised by a Southern family, so we put Miss or Mr. or whatever. So please correct me if it's doctor or whichever.
Well, what I'm very proud of is the fact that we've made such great progress in terms of, look around this table right here. I have a group of powerful women from all different aspects, all different ethnicities, backgrounds, and we're able to come together in a way that is, in my opinion, very powerful. So I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud of being, a daughter of a single parent, and as an immigrant coming to the US from South Korea, that we were able to build a life that we couldn't have dreamed about. So I think from that perspective, I'm proud of that while still keeping true to my heritage.
Amen to that. All right, take it from here.
All right. Thank you so much, Cece.
Thank you.
So I just want to share with the audience, we have an incredible group of women here who have tremendous amount of work history, career. So let me start with Carla to talk about your career journey, Carla, and how did it lead up to where you are today?
Oh gosh, I'm going to go back probably just 25 years. And, what's led me to my career today is I started working for my tribal nation through Indian Health Services and working on prevention. And it was diabetes prevention, tobacco cessation, like getting people to live healthy lifestyles. And I found that I was really passionate, about helping others and finding ways to be healthy. And at that time, Boys and Girls Club of America was actually opening clubs up in Indian country. And so it came to our community, and Boys and Girls Club was something new to us. And we decided we would become affiliated with Boys and Girls Club of America. And I opened the first Native Boys and Girls Club in the Northeast, and later partnered with 5 federally recognized tribes, expanding the services. And that was in 2000. And then in 2013, Boys and Girls Club of America recognized the need, just like things that we're talking about today, for culturally relevant services and the need for customized training or culturally relevant training programs and competency working with tribal nations. And they established the Native Services, a specialty unit within this national organization. And so today, or this year, we're actually celebrating 30 years of Boys and Girls Clubs in Indian country and have 228 sites across the nation. And we believe every Native youth and Native community deserves a Boys and Girls Club. So that's just a little bit about my career journey. We call this a movement, Boys and Girls Club, but it's really about being passionate about the work that we do, that I wake up every day determined and excited about a new day in my career.
Well, that's an incredible thing that you started up there in the Northeast. One thing I did want to ask is, how did you end up being the vice president?
Hard work. Also, well, I'm trying to be humble, but it's hard work, but also acknowledging talent. I started as a director of organizational development, advanced shortly after that as a national director, and then I became a vice president, and now I'm a national vice president. But it's really like just hard work and being really committed to the work that you do and showing up as a leader every day.
Thank you for sharing that. Glenda, how about you?
So the question is how my career path.
Yes, just share about your career journey and how it led up to what you're doing today.
So I grew up in Kentucky, graduated and went on to law school, thinking that I was very idealistic graduating from law. I moved with my former husband to a really small town called Kennett, Missouri. And I took care of our business, and I went into the State Farm office to transfer insurance and get insurance for our business. And the agent at the time liked me, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about retiring. I think you would be a great agent." And I said, "No, thank you. I don't know anything about insurance. I just graduated from law school. I probably want to do something like that." And I had to go in very often because we were new. And he finally showed me his paycheck one day. And then I said, "Oh, okay. You've got my attention now. I'll have you my resume tomorrow." And I interviewed for agency, and I got the opportunity, really not knowing what I was doing. So a little bit of vulnerability here. I saw the money before I saw the purpose. And so I went into agency because it's a great opportunity. But as I learned about State Farm and learned about our mission and what we do and the noble purpose really that we have, I fell in love with the opportunity more and more. And so I was an agent for 8 years before joining leadership. And then just like you, had an opportunity to show hard work, dedication, decision-making, and, was given additional opportunity, additional responsibilities, and then currently a vice president, and I share the state of Texas with 3 other peers. And State Farm, I'm proud to say, is getting ready to celebrate our 100th anniversary here in June. So we'll all be gathering at convention soon to celebrate a milestone that very few companies have been able to accomplish. But that's kind of my journey. It didn't start like most would have thought. Had no idea. Was totally an external coming into a really historic company with deep roots and lots of agents.
Well, I love the fact that, you didn't exactly know where you wanted to be, because not everybody is clear when they start. They don't all know exactly what they want to do and where they want to be. Like, a lot of us don't know that until we're in it.
Right.
So I think that's a great story. Antoinette, why did you even build this organization? I mean, what's the career? You're the founder, you're the CEO, you do everything. I know what you do because I've seen it behind the scenes.
Well, let me tell you where my career started when I graduated from the University of Southern California with a master's in nonprofit administration. And I wanted to relocate to be with family. So I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. And that was, I began my quest. I wanted to be the director for the biggest nonprofit organization that I could go to. So I started doing my job search and sending out hundreds of resumes, because I knew with my USC being my alma mater that it would be so easy for me to secure a job. But what was happening as I was doing my job search, I kept getting offered jobs like administrative assistant, a receptionist. I was like, wait a minute, look at my credentials. I know that I have the background. I was active with the Black Student Union in California. I had all these credentials. I just could not get the job that I wanted after looking for a long time. So I accepted a position as an administrative assistant at a historically Black college, Morehouse College. And I was the AA to a person who was over a program funded by NASA. So to make a long story short, I was able to really excel because that person left the position, and I was able to take over a like $25 million program funded by the National Aeronautical Space Administration, really run the program and excel in that particular position. But I always wanted to be in charge of a nonprofit. So while I was at Morehouse, I worked 10 years of working at Morehouse. I decided to start an organization and still work at Morehouse. So you could say I was moonlighting. So because I still had the dream about having my own, running an organization. So I said, if nobody will hire me, guess what? I'm going to have to pave my own way. So if I can't land the kind of job that I want, I'm going to have to create that job or create that opportunity for myself. So make a long story short, while I was at Morehouse, I started WEOP, and I did Morehouse. I did WEOP because I had twin sister that was working there 4 times, so she could really make sure everything was running. So with us working hand in hand, I was able to still get a salary, still run an organization until I got to a point where I could take that organization, come in full time. Then that's what I did. So that's kind of the career path. It's almost wanting to do something. No, nobody would hire you to do it, but you knew that you had to make your own path. So I made my own path, and then I could be in the driver's seat, understanding that this is the organization I started. I could launch initiatives. I could do my programs. I could be creative because, as you know, working in certain environments, you have to go through this chain of command. They have to prove this or prove that. But being the head of an organization, you could be so creative. You could wake up in the morning and say, this is what I want to do. And you can get your team on board, everybody on board, and keep pushing those creative ideas. So to make a long story short, that's how right now I'm happy to say that I'm working full time. I have a great team, and I'm ahead of my own initiative, and I'm loving every moment because I can be so creative, and I can say that I am in the midst of making things change, having great partnerships, and making things happen. So that's kind of my career path.
Well, the career path that you chose is basically about control. You're in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And you're wanting to, figure out where to go. And if it's a mistake that we make, guess what? We made it, and let's change, right?
Exactly.
Let's pivot. So that's fantastic. So let's talk about self-awareness. And so let me start with, and is Glenda still on, or did we lose Glenda?
I think she dropped off. She was on the
Okay. So let's start with, I'm going to start with Carla.
Okay.
So Carla, how does self-awareness, first of all, how do you define it? How do you define self-awareness? And then how does it come into play in your work?
So if I was going to define self-awareness, for me, it's really being clear on my values and who I am as a person. And you heard me talk about that earlier. So for me, being aware, like I think of my dad always told me when I was a little girl, always know your gifts. And what he meant was really our strengths. And he always said, and don't let them go to waste. So when I think of being self-aware, knowing my strengths, my weaknesses, but also, Sue-Ann, acknowledging we all have blind spots, right? So that means including me. But knowing those strengths and weaknesses really allowed me to be adaptable in my work and embrace change and even embrace challenges. But one thing that I would share, like as an Indigenous person, always having to educate, advocate, or embrace the speak up culture, it's really extremely important to me, like in my work, to be self-aware of my emotional triggers, right? And knowing how to manage those. And I'm also very in tune with myself. And with that self-awareness, I've really learned to embrace my intuition. I think that's really important to listen to your intuition. So being with, I guess, in tune with myself, I'm actually, I know what it feels like when others are not self-aware of their own behaviors or how they show up and how it can affect another person. So I personally make every effort to show kindness, empathy, and give grace to those that I work with.
I love that. There's a lot of components to what you said, and especially around the strengths and the weaknesses, but also understanding how you show up. So that's huge. Glenda, how about you? How do you define self-awareness, and then how does that show up at work?
My definition of self-awareness is consistency and balance. And how does that show up at work? To me, I have 3 agreements that I sort of live by, and it has helped me tremendously, myself as well as teams that I have an opportunity to lead. The first agreement is to assume positive. Sometimes as AAPI women, I don't know about you, but sense of indignation, if you will, if people don't understand. And then when you make assumptions that they should understand and they don't, then you get out of balance. And so assuming positive intent, I think, is important. Number 2, is doing the best and giving ourselves the grace. The best on certain days may be my best, but may not be yours. So being clear, clarity and self-awareness as to what hat you're going to wear that day, really important. As a single mom, some days I wake up and I'm going to give myself grace to say I'm going to be the best today, but probably not my best self at work, not the best VP, not the best leader. Other days, I will need to wake up and decide, do I need to be the best VP today and the best mom? And those have been agonizing decisions. But when you give yourself that grace and you have that agreement, it really, really helps. And then, finally, number 3 is that drive and curiosity. Always ask for clarity, especially as women. At times, I've been labeled as asking too many questions. And I used to let that get to me, but no more. Because without asking clarity and having the courage to ask questions, sometimes you make assumptions, and you know what happens when you make assumptions. And so for me, the self-balance, self-awareness is really about balance, clarity, and then I live by those 3 agreements.
I love that. And at the end of the day, not even comparing myself to other people, it's about my best today and my best tomorrow might be different bests, but it's still my best, right?
Yes.
So I think that's, I don't know about you, but I don't feel always as compassionate with myself as I am with other people.
Yes. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about you, Antoinette? How do you define self-awareness, and then how does it show up at work?
And when you and I had that conversation when you invited me to be on the panel, to be perfectly honest, I never even used the word self-awareness. So I actually had to really give that some thought to say, okay, now self-awareness, because when we talked, I was like, how can I talk about self-awareness? It just never really is a part of my conversation. So I did jot down some things in terms of how I perceive self-awareness, because I really had to think about it soon after our conversation. And I said, self-awareness gives us the power to influence outcomes. I also stated that self-awareness helps us make better decisions as we communicate with clarity and intention. It also allows us to understand things from multiple perspectives, because I'm always thinking about different perspectives from my entrepreneurs and from my team, etc. It also frees us from making assumptions and biases, which is very important. Another thing, it helps us build better relationships. So being so self-aware means that we can really be in tune and intentional about our relationships. It also gives us a great ability to regulate our emotions. Emotions are so important. In dealing with the range of women that I deal with on so many different levels, emotions is something that comes to play all the time. I'm always mulling through relationships, how you feel, rational, being rational, emotional versus rational. So being self-aware to me taps into all of those dynamics. All those things are very important. That helps us thrive, that relieves stress, that helps us get through our day, and just helps us be better leaders overall.
And I love that. And what was so hilarious about what the conversation that Antoinette was referring to, when I called her and approached her about this panel, she's like, no, I don't know. No, I can't do this panel. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I told her, let me give you examples about your self-awareness. And so it was just, the whole thing was hilarious. And I said, just for that reason, you need to be on the panel. So I think, these are all interesting, but yet different nuances between the three of you about self-awareness. And I think, tell me how you feel as you move up in the organization, how important does self-awareness come into play? And then give an example, if you would, where maybe even like where something maybe didn't go well, or maybe something that either went very well or maybe it didn't go well, but how does it show up even more so as you move up? So let me start with Glenda on this one.
Yes, and so I'm sitting here kind of breaking out in sweats as you ask me that question, because I'm reliving moments where my awareness was really painful. But it taught me a lesson, and it came with what I talked to you about of being labeled as asking too many questions. And so, my mind, maybe it's my legal training, I don't know, but I am generally a curious person because I just want to know. I just want to know. And the lesson that I learned was, as I've been given more responsibility and you move up in the organization, sometimes when you ask questions, you be careful as to whose benefit you're asking the question for. Is it for you? Is it to move the work? Is it to prove someone wrong? Is it to provide clarity? Because the audience in the room is often made up of people who work for you or as direct reports, people who are presenting, and then senior leadership. And so the self-awareness lesson was realizing that innately, I do just love the art of learning. But when I ask the question, I have to be mindful of who is in the room, because the question could come off as challenging to the person who is presenting if you don't provide context. It could spiral to additional work from direct reports who go, oh, I don't know that answer. My gosh, I better go research that before she talks to me again. Or, as senior leaders, the impression that it could be self-serving versus the intent of just learning. And so while painful at times, it has definitely made me a better leader in terms of, sometimes gain comes with pain, right? As they say. So that would be an example, Sue Ann, from a self-awareness perspective of my desire to ask questions, and then how I've been able to manage that.
I want to kind of pull out something very important you just said about having context, providing context. And so you can frame whatever it is that you're asking. That is definitely a great technique, I think. So that, to your point, you're not creating work unintentionally for someone, or somebody has to, because when you're an executive, people are listening and then they want to go act and solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
so simple things like, you said something that made me think about it this way. And so I just want to make sure that I am on the same page, or I'm thinking about it correctly. So then you ask the question, right?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
something you said has made me curious because that hasn't been what I've observed. And so I just want to make sure. So it's just, yes, simple techniques like that. You're absolutely right.
I love that. How about you, Carla?
Well, I could relate to so much of what she shared. But what I would say is a challenge for me, or something that I'm very self-aware of, is, being an Indigenous woman, of like how I have to be so self-aware of how I show up and try to manage how I show up. So I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to say is, and I've shared this with you, Sue Ann, when people look at me, they say, oh, that's the Native lady that serves, Native services, right? So that's how they see me. And I'm very self-aware of that. So I have to work, I feel, extra hard to show that I'm strategic, I'm a leader, I'm a thought partner. I'm not just leading a specialty team, but whenever I walk into a room, I have to really turn on that self-aware of how I'm being portrayed to others and how I show up. Yeah. But I've also learned by being self-aware, Sue Ann, like who I'm working with, right? In my job, I'm working with many tribal nations, and I have so much respect for them. I know when to lean in and listen, do that active listening, be humbled, be honored. But then there's other instances where I have to show up and be self-aware of knowing I need to speak up, be more assertive, and be heard, and be that voice at the table. Yeah. So it's a balance, and you have to be self-aware of the audience or who you're with in the environment. So I could relate. Yes.
Absolutely. How about you, Antoinette?
I can say being self-aware, I have to be self-assured that I don't need to have validation from anyone. So as a woman of color, I'm part of a unique group of women called founders. I founded the organization with my twin sister. So from the philanthropic world, my credibility, my credentials are always questioned. I talk to potential funders and they immediately want to train me. So I have a master's degree, I have years of experience, I mentor women, but sometimes because I'm an organization that is founded by women of colors, it's like your leadership is questioned, your credibility is questioned, your what you do, you're not a thought leader. So I have to be self-assured when I walk into the room, when I'm dealing with sponsors, overall, because that is something that comes up all the time. And we know that there are very few organizations that are founded by women of color, let's face it. Overall, I don't know of any organizations in Georgia that are founded by, that are not NGO, that are not funded by government dollars, that are doing something to what I'm doing. So it's a constant battle with what I do. So I have to be self-assured, self-aware to make sure that my work is serious. I'm serious, and we're surrounded by a group of women that take this seriously, and that we do have the credentials to make sure that we do the work the way it should be done.
Absolutely. And by the way, everyone, I've worked with Antoinette. I know how she works, and I love it. And so let me then ask you this, and I'm going to ask each of you an individual question that's unique to you. So, Carla, you talked a little bit about kind of when you walk into the room, you're kind of perceived as this Native lady, and, this kind of stereotype. What are things that you do specifically to break out of that? And how do you stretch yourself? How do you put yourself out there?
So that's a great question, because one, though, I have made the commitment to myself to show up every day unapologetic of who I am, Sue Ann. So first, I bring my whole self to work, and they have to own that's how they see me, and how I stretch myself. Gosh, I just had a conversation over this. There was a few of us talking about imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that, but, I work twice as hard. I volunteer for things that are outside of my scope of work, right? To show my worth. But I know my worth. I know my strengths. I know my skills. But I want to be seen. I'll share an interesting story with you. I was going to be on something different, and they wanted to hear about my work that I do. But when I spoke, they said, "Oh, it's so corporate because you're speaking from a very high level." And it was almost like I felt like, oh, I found success. I wasn't seen just as a Native lady. I was seeing at this higher level. But then I had to be self-aware and say, there's nothing wrong with that, Carla. There's nothing wrong with being your true, authentic self and showing up that way. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I know that I've worked extremely hard to be seen as not just the Native lady. But at the end of the day, I'm proud to be that Native lady.
Absolutely. It's like the way I look at it is, Carla, you're a leader who happens to be.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I always, I try to list like, these are leaders who happen to be women and who happen to be this ethnicity or this from this tribe. I think it's even the way we introduce the leaders. I think that's important. I love that. All right. So Carla, you work for a Fortune 50 company. I think they're like, State Farm's like 39 now. And how do you as a leader and an executive work with the community? And then does that, being an executive, can you ever turn it off when you're in public?
I know that question was not from me.
That was for Glenda, right?
That was for Glenda. I'm sorry.
Oh, Glenda, that's
Carl. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
How do I ever turn? That's a good question. That's why I think what I appreciate what Carla said is being the whole person leader. Turning it off and on probably to me means more about what I'm speaking about and less about my whole person. Has it always been that way? No. So as a young leader, as a new VP, you kind of felt like you had to prove yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think as a woman, I often feel that way because my peers, I have women peers. There are many at State Farm, but there are also many men peers. And sometimes I'm jealous because their situation is different than mine in terms of having a supporting spouse, maybe that doesn't work. Whereas, I'm a single mom, but those are the cards that we are dealt. And so when I am with a group of agents or with a group of State Farm leaders, you have to make a decision. Are you bringing your whole self? Because if you only bring a small portion of you or only allow a portion of you and you shut it on and shut it off, it's exhausting. Mm-hmm. And then you really do perhaps sometimes step into that imposter syndrome because who are you? Mm-hmm. Right? And Sue Ann, I think you can identify with me because we share, the love for the same company. But if you are only on as a executive and you never allow people to see the real you, you lose your credibility because they're like, who's that? Who is she really? Is she always that way? Can we trust her? Can we believe in what she says? And I think at the end of the day, as leaders, period, credibility is so important for both the people that you lead, the people that lead you, upwards, downwards, sideways. And so turning it off and turning it on, I think is a real thing. But when you find that balance of unapologetically saying, this is who I am and I deserve to be here. I am a good leader. Not a perfect leader, but I'm a good leader. Then that shifts that balance to where it becomes whole and you allow your authentic self to show off and on work. And it's really empowering. I've only learned that lesson in the last, to be honest with you, last 4 years. And I've been a VP now for 5. But the last 4 years have actually been more enjoyable because I don't have to act. I just have to be.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, at CAPAW, it's all about whole person leader, right? You bring your whole self to work. So yes, absolutely. All right, Antoinette, you mentioned a little bit about some of the challenges that you face when you're, looking for funding, how you're perceived as a leader, as a founder of the organization. But as leading a organization that's women of color entrepreneurs, how do you build constituency?
Well, we have events. We always have things going on. We create a safe place for women to connect, to provide women with access, to connect them to resources that can build who they are as entrepreneurs. So when they see us or when they see me, they feel safe. Women of color like to have these safe places that they can be nurtured and supported. And, sometimes you throw them out into some of these programs and it's okay. The diversity is great, especially when they're around males and different, but when you create a safe place for women to really talk, share, network, have access, and to be around women that sincerely care about them and who they are and where they're going, it's just a different kind of experience. So as a leader of an organization, I'm constantly creating those environments, those events, those networking opportunities, sharing information to create that safe place for women of color to come together, to feel like they have a sense of a family, and to understand that they are not alone in their journey, that they have other women that are supporting them. And I'm constantly in a situation where I'm teaching other women to really appreciate their relationships, to nurture them, and to understand how to be friends and how to be associates and how to support each other. So that's kind of what I do from an organizational point of view.
Yeah. And one thing that you told me early on, Antoinette, that I really appreciated is you said that you do kind of scrutinize over a little bit about who you partner with, because you want to make sure that they deliver, like they actually do what they say they're going to do. They follow up. So you and I had that conversation about that constituency building.
It's so important because sometimes you bring people into your network and it's about equal exchange. So you don't want to bring people into your network and it's more beneficial for them than it is for you. And then they're not owning up to what they agreed to do. And then they have access to your pool of people that you spend so much time cultivating. And then you expose them to another kind of thing that may not be positive. So it's a constant saying, okay, is this going to be a good fit, a good partner? And do I enjoy the partnership? Because you don't enjoy working with everyone.
Exactly. I like working with people I like, if I'm being honest. Right, Cece?
Hey. Right. Speaking of, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yay.
All right. Let me ask you this. Okay. So we talked about the self-awareness piece. Let's talk about a situation where you've provided feedback to someone. So Glenda, tell us an example about where you provided, and I'm going to put difficult feedback for someone. Can you share how you did it?
Yes. So I've got 2 examples for you, both one personal and one professional. So the personal example would be my daughter. I had, teased you previously with the quarter Vietnamese comment. And so she was really proud of the uniqueness, right? And at first it was, I bet you didn't know. And it came out of innocence, but after a while it was more of for attention versus being prideful of her heritage per se. And so I had to, how do you not quash the excitement from your child, but share with them the impact of how they're saying what they're saying and how it was kind of eroding, if you will, the pride that I have for our heritage, where I saw her using it as an attention getter rather than the authentic, I really am part of the AAPI community. And so that was a very difficult conversation without breaking her spirit, but trying to teach her. But we worked through that. And so now, you know, with her seeing me with opportunities like this, learning about my own heritage, I come from a big family. It was a difficult conversation, but it's one that has continued, and it's continued in a really positive way. So that's one example personally. The other, professionally, I had a female leader. She was an amazing leader, hard worker, but she led more men than she did women. And I observed her in a presentation, and she was really going overboard with details, giving them all the minutia, if you will, of a decision that was being made, or, you know, the recent results. And I could see that she was losing their attention. And so as I coached her and wanted her to succeed, I had to kind of call her aside and say, you're very capable. You don't have to defend your position every time you go in front of this audience by showing them or sharing with them how much you know. Be confident in how much you know, but be aware of your audience and how much information you share with them in order to motivate. And that was a difficult, again, conversation, because you don't want to break someone's spirit, but you wanted to give them feedback to help them and really empower her, because she was the most qualified. But every time she went in front of people, it was almost like, yeah, but I know this, and let me share with you what I know so that you can know that I know what I know, you know?
Right.
So those would be two examples, Sue-Ann.
That's great. The knower versus the person who's curious. Right? Absolutely. Antoinette, how about you? What is an example where you provided feedback?
I was in a situation where, you know, I like connecting entrepreneurs. Now, I always encourage them to think about joint ventures and ways they can expand their business. So I connected these two entrepreneurs, and I really thought, because of the synergies of their business, they really matched. To make a long story short, when I connected them, one of the entrepreneurs was trying to steal one of the entrepreneurs had a contract with a prime contractor, and she was bringing the other entrepreneur on board, but the other entrepreneur came in and wanted to actually take the contract away from her. So I had to have a conversation with both of them about the ethics of supporting each other, and about how, when you have the entrepreneur journey, not to be hungry, so you're stepping on someone else's toes, and how to really understand how to cultivate those relationships. So that was a very difficult situation, because I heard from one spectrum of one entrepreneur and the other, and I had to work on bringing them together so they wouldn't have this rift between each other. So it took a while of coaching, having discussions. It took about a month to really get them to kind of work through the situation. So that was a kind of a teaching moment. And again, encouraging women that don't fight against each other. You can have more strength when you come together. And ethically, that was not the situation where now you can no longer do business with this person. They're never going to trust you. And part of business is building that trust. So that was a very difficult situation, a teaching situation.
That's a tricky one for sure, and very sensitive, and as well as, especially when you're talking about stealing somebody's business.
Yes.
That's never a good reputation to have there. But so that's great that you helped them through that.
And understand integrity, trust, integrity, which whatever you do, not just this relationship, but how you're going to handle the relationships that are going to be after that and that are coming at you is so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. How about you, Carla?
All right. So the question is how I provided feedback when I'm observing someone is not so self-aware.
Right.
And what I would say is that's where, let's see here. crucial conversations comes in handy, or courageous conversations. Glenda was talking about her personal thing, but I've seen people that are not self-aware of words they use, and words matter. And they don't have bad intentions, but they're really not self-aware of words they use. I've been in meetings before where it might say, all right, let's get in our teams and let's powwow. But why wouldn't you say get in the teams and let's strategize X, Y, and Z? So that's when, you have to provide that feedback. And it could be that crucial conversation or courageous conversation, and call it out when it happens. But I'm also really aware when people, I think I'm not just only self-aware, but I'm also very aware of others and how they accept feedback. And sometimes it's a side conversation in a really gentle way and say, I know you had no ill intentions, but words do matter. And there could be a group in the room that's offended by it. So that's what I'll share is like the strength or the courage to speak up. And not just for Indigenous people, for all people, when something inappropriate is said, to speak up. So I'm embracing that speak up culture, and I'm not afraid to provide feedback in a way that they receive it.
I love that. And part of that is maybe just, again, not knowing, thinking that these things are okay, but it's not okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love it. You guys, can you believe an hour has flown by already?
No,
it doesn't seem possible. So let me give each of you like 15 seconds to give one last tip or hint, best advice you can give. I'm going to start with Carla.
All right, 15 seconds. Accept feedback. Always ask, what can I do more of? What should I stop doing? What should I continue to do? But also self-reflect and look for self-improvement as you become more self-aware.
I love that. Antoinette, you're on mute.
I said, surround yourself by great, inspiring, and motivational people.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Love it. Glenda.
Assume positive intent first.
Ooh, absolutely.
Be courageous to ask for clarity. Mm-hmm. And then give yourself the grace to be the best that you can be that day.
I love that. Ladies, you are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us at the Moana Nui Podcast with CAPAW. CC, I mean, come on. Is this a spectacular group or what?
I mean, I'm just so happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here. That's all I can say. I'm like, part of me is like, how did I get here? Like, I know how I got here, but how did I get
You're here because you deserve to be here, CC.
Thank you. That's how you're here. Right. There goes the imposter syndrome, right? but thank you all so much. This has been an honor and privilege. Thank you, Moana. Thank you, Dana. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe Moana Nui Podcast on all platforms, especially YouTube, Facebook, and IG. They're pretty live on those. And check them out on all your favorite streaming platforms. So thanks again so much, ladies. You all have a great
Thank you,
evening.
everyone. See you next month.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf, if they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place, multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation, colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii in a perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals, school will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
I'm Steve Bloom. I've been a voice actor for more than 30 years, playing characters like Wolverine, Starscream, Tank Dempsey from Call of Duty.
With Bloomfox Studios, I've learned so much about myself.
Learning to breathe, to no fear, to getting ugly in front of the mic.
One of the biggest changes I've noticed, at least for me, is how much my confidence level has gone up.
I've done an Eastern European video game, an e-commerce commercial, a documentary. If you're thinking about getting into voiceover, just do it. Jump in.